Welcome back to the Other Side of 45's podcast. I'm your host, Randy Black. This podcast is about taking chances, owning my mistakes, addressing generational and family trauma and curses, completing my 50s by 50 list, and my life as a single empty nester. If this is your first time listening, welcome. Please subscribe and rate this podcast 5 stars. I want to begin by apologizing for posting this episode 2 days late. I had an episode ready to share, but then there was the infamous Oscar slap. Now, I'm not using my platform to debate if what Will Smith did was acceptable, nor am I going to dissect it like many have done on social media. However, I did have to change my episode because I was already going to speak on this subject, and I wanted to include this incident. So it takes me a while to record episodes. So, as you know, I have raised 2 beautiful Black women who have both matriculated with honors. And I shared on my previous episode entitled Feminism, and Feminine that I had a very jaded view of this subject. In the evolution of me, I have taken different stances on the idea of being a feminist and being feminine. Past me. So this is past me. If I were in Jada's shoes, I would have been offended that my husband felt the need to react at all. I would have thought, you think I can't handle Chris Rock? Please. Now, through my evolution, having a man do such things for me would have made me feel vulnerable and weak, which is contrary to my strong woman persona. So when I saw the slap, I winced and I said, seriously, like it's Chris Rock. And this was coming from what I thought was a buried, retired version of me. But it came out to rear its ugly head when I saw that slap. Then I really thought about what I had just witnessed. And I had mixed feelings. You see, back in February, I attended an event hosted by my friend Nicola, founder of Girls Who Brunch Tour. The event was a conversation entitled Protecting Black Girls. Nicola's organization supports young girls living in underserved areas. She also has a book entitled What Was I Supposed to Do? The book's main character is fictional, but the stories are stories of girls in her organization. So the stories are true. Her organizations help young girls who have been trafficked. So she does very hard work. It's very difficult, reading the stories, and it's because I know she's shared some with me. So this book, in my opinion, is a hard read because these stories are true. These are actually things that have happened to some poor young girl. What I appreciated about the event, Protecting Black Girls, was the language that Nicola used when referring to young girls. She called them children, or she would say our babies, because guess what? They are that. And sometimes in the Black and brown communities, our girls are over-sexualized and oftentimes viewed as adults, sometimes being called fast when a man sees them as a woman. Young girls are blamed for his lack of control. And this resonated with me because something similar happened to me. As a family friend, an adult male, a member of the cult, was visiting the home, and I was wearing a skirt. It wasn't short because, it was a cult. And I had my knees in the chair at the kitchen table. So I was leaning over the table, and my caboose was raised, and my mother got so upset. And she scolded me right there in front of everyone, including this friend. Now, I had never felt anything but comfortable around this man. And to this day, I don't think he had any inappropriate thoughts about me or anybody else for that matter. So I'm thinking I was about 11 or 12 years old. And he was a married man, a leader in the congregation. Now, she told me that I should never lean over in that way when in a skirt when men were present. And there were other things that she said, but that was the gist. And I was embarrassed by what mother was saying and a little confused. Because, why should I be cautious around this man? Now, there were plenty of adults around, and again, he's a grown man, and I was a child. She didn't think he would do anything to me, but knew that men had that potential. As I got older, I questioned why this was in my control. How could that be in my control the way he thought? So, in my opinion, if a grown man can be turned on by a 12-year-old leaning over a table, what I was wearing was not going to stop that. The idea that adults create this environment where a child must be careful to keep men at bay was troubling then and now. This is why the Protect Black Girls event really hit home for me. To get deeper, I think, so what does protect Black women mean? What does that look like? Do we even need to be protected? The protection we're discussing was more like the incident I talked about earlier with a friend and her family. Yes, that goes without saying that we should protect Black girls from actual harm. However, the protect Black women I'm talking about in this episode isn't about protecting us from physical harm or from being victims of sexual assault. This is how the Will Smith slap joins this conversation. When I look at the definition of protect, it says protect means keep safe from harm or injury. And it was clear that his wife Jada was not in jeopardy of being injured. At most, he was protecting her honor. Now, in my last episode, I talked about that. I felt like a strong woman, and I had hoped my girls were strong Black women. In the evolution of me, I've learned that being a strong woman isn't glamorous, and it's certainly not a badge of honor, at least not anymore. Back then, I thought it was, but at least not so much anymore. It has been said that holding that strong Black woman image contributes to why society, Black men in particular, think that we don't need to be protected. Even though I've tried to evolve and learn from my mistakes, I struggle with the thought of this concept of protecting women, period. I've spent the past 47 years trying to be the type of woman that didn't need to be protected. The drawback is, according to today's standards, is that this is what has led to Black women in particular being overlooked and tossed aside for the more feminine white women. White women cry and all men stop and try to comfort her. Black women cry and we're questioned, criticized, and most times ignored. I've been called a strong mother, and most understand how difficult it can be to be a single mother. So that adjective of being a strong woman, that's what I always understood that they were referring to. So it's okay for me. But then I think about my daughters. And I've avoided dating to protect my girls from predatory men. I mean, this is what's been indoctrinated in me. Men are scary. Men can have this potential. So I rationalize that dating should be put on hold, because if I was wrong about a man and that I allowed this man around my girls, that this would be a lifetime scar for them. Note. Now, I didn't see healthy relationships growing up. I didn't see my married relatives or those in a relationship show affection. I'm talking, there was no kissing, no hugging, no hand holding. Never heard them say I love you to their spouse, significant other, nor did they say it to their children. Matter of fact, my grandparents didn't share a bedroom. That was my normal. When I got married, I had nothing to go on. I had to wing it. My ex-husband didn't have examples of healthy relationships, so we were young and experienced and nowhere to turn for advice. So let me put this in context for you. When I was married, doing something as normal as kissing him goodbye or hello or was not something I did naturally. And you know what? It didn't bother me at all. If he left for work or returned from work and I didn't hug or kiss him, never even crossed my mind. But it did cross his mind. He was very understanding and sometimes had to initiate the kiss or hug. Now, after my divorce, as I stated earlier, I didn't date often. I stopped dating when the girls were in elementary school. That's when I made the conscious decision. I said, no guys, done, none. Because they were getting older. When they were young, before elementary school or so, they were too young to know. And I never brought men around them. But I made the decision when they were in elementary school, I'm done. So if you want me to do the math for you, we're talking about 13 years. That's a long time. The few times I did date, my lack of affection was noted. I recall in a previous relationship, the man I was dating said very bluntly that I did not know how to greet my man. I was like, what? I was floored, a little embarrassed. I was still not doing the kiss or hug, hello or goodbye thing. I never picked up on that. It wasn't like I was trying to be distant. It just didn't come naturally. And this was a theme of the few relationships that I've had in my 47 years. So now, anyway, back to the girls. I know that this has affected them because they struggle in their relationships. They're a little bit better at affection than I, because unlike me, they got hugs, kisses. They heard that they were loved from me and other relatives in the family. And I asked my oldest about this Will Smith slap, and she and I both agree Will's reaction was inappropriate. And I asked her how she felt about the protect black women thing, and she agrees that black women should be protected. What's interesting is that when I put her in that scenario that Jada was in, but used something that I knew that she struggled with, that she was uncomfortable about with herself, I asked her, I said, now, what if he was in Jada's shoes and he said this? Because I know how sensitive she is about this particular thing about herself. And she said that she felt that if it were her, that she would want her significant other to respond. At first, she said she wouldn't expect him to respond at all. But then when I changed the scenario and made it personal, she was like, yeah, I would have wanted him to say something. But just not like that. She was like, he could have pulled him off, but I definitely would have expected him or wanted him to speak up. But as far as actually defending black women, she really said it depended on the scenario. That she didn't expect it because she doesn't think that it would actually happen, which is sad. And so I asked her, if you believe in the protect black women, when do you expect your significant other to do so? And what does that look like for you? So we had this hearty discussion. And the conclusion is that she believes, again, that black men should stand up for black women, speak up and protect black women when we are being verbally attacked. Now, it's trendy now to degrade and put down black women on social media. What she is seeing is black men not only are not showing up and defending, but sharing in on the insults and stereotypes. To see a black man that finally stood up and says, keep my wife's name out of your mouth, is not what she is used to seeing. She believes that the matter, of course, like I said earlier, could have been handled and should have been handled away from the cameras, but genuinely what he did, of the speaking up part, is something that she would want. And that this was an example of protecting black women. Now, I'm not perfect. I've made mistakes and I'm owning them. And this is a generational curse that I did not break. And I have high hopes that because my children are more informed, that they will be the ones that will break this curse for us. No pressure. Ultimately, I just want them to be in a happy, healthy relationship. And even though I've had to pass the torch to future generations to get rid of this generational curse, I'm still living my life like the words of my sister Mary J. Blige. And theme song of my life, just fine. I like what I see when I'm looking at me when I'm walking past the mirror. Don't stress through the night at a time in my life. Ain't worried about if you feel it. Got my head on straight. I got my vibe right. I ain't gonna let you kill it. You see, I wouldn't change my life. My life's just fine. Before I end today's episode, I want to update you on what I'm working on. First, I want to encourage you to follow Nicola Mitchell on Instagram. She's the founder of Girls Who Brunch Tour. Now, I volunteered at her Protect Black Girls event last month. She's an award writer, international speaker, and soon-to-be TV producer. Honey, she is doing amazing things. And I look forward to her next event in Atlanta on April 16, where I will be again volunteering. But, drum roll please, this is the great news. I will also be a vendor. Yes. So I'm going to promote this podcast and the group that I created, Black Girls Who Network. Because she deals with young girls, and she'll be at Banneker High School, it will be more about Black Girls Who Network for the girls, and something small for the parents to promote this podcast. So over the next few weeks, I'm going to be preparing for this event and creating giveaways for the attendees. And I'm excited about the future of this podcast and the group. But I've decided to forego the YouTube channel for the podcast on the advice of my oldest daughter. So I updated the YouTube channel to be for Black Girls Who Network. The website for the podcast will be live before next week's episode. And over the next few weeks and months, I'm going to be focusing on promoting both the podcast and the group. More good news. I'm also enrolled in my next course at eCornell to get my brand management certification. So despite all these activities I have going on, I'm committed to making sure that the episodes post on time. So meet me on the other side of 45's podcast and the Instagram. New episodes will be released every Monday. Thank you for tuning in. Please rate the podcast 5 stars on Apple Podcasts so others can find it. It helps my podcast grow. Your feedback and support is appreciated.